the people in California. We want to have no crime. I know Gavin was here. I used to get along so great with Gavin when I was president. Gavin's a good guy. And we're going to, if he needed it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd love to see, we did help them a lot in Los Angeles, a lot with the early in my term when they had some problems. But we would love to do it. I will say this, if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, come on in, make us look good. Because we're cutting crime down to nothing. And we're taking people out, career criminals, who are only going to do bad things, and we're bringing them back to their countries. But where we've done it has been amazing. And we have a capacity to do it at much greater levels. We're cutting illegal aliens off welfare and other government benefits, and I have directed that starting immediately, there will be no more payments to sanctuary cities because they are really just sanctuaries for criminals. They're really protecting criminals, and those are the ones we have to get out of the country: murderers, drug dealers.
Donald Trump is doubling down on stupid. California has been a leader in climate policy going back to Ronald Reagan. 1967, Governor Ronald Reagan established the first tailpipe emissions in the United States of America, created the California Air Resources Board. 3 years later, a president by the name of Richard Nixon, another Republican, codified California's leadership under the Clean Air Act. Never in the history of the United States of America has there been a more destructive president than the current occupant in the White House in Washington, D.C. He's trying to recreate the 19th century. He's a wholly owned subsidiary of big oil, gas, and coal. He's quite literally reopening coal plants in the United States of America. He's received close to $500 million in campaign contributions. He asked for $1 billion, look it up, in return for basically eliminating all regulations in the United States of America. De facto, he just did that yesterday with federal regulations and the endangerment finding. It is code red in terms of American leadership in this space. Low carbon, green growth. And I know a thing or two about this. I represent the 4th largest economy from a GDP perspective in the world. And we ran the 4th largest economy last year, 9 out of 10 days on 100% clean energy. 2/3 renewable energy. We've seen our GDP grow by 81% since 2000, and we've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 21%. 7 times more clean energy jobs than fossil fuel jobs. We're proving at scale that we can implement, we can compete, and we can dominate. But Donald Trump is trying to turn back the clock. And so we're showing up, but we're also showing what can be accomplished, the power of emulation. We are in the great implementation in my state. Final word. I hope, if there's nothing else I can communicate today, Donald Trump is temporary. He'll be gone in 3 years. California is a stable and reliable partner in this space. And it's important for folks to understand the temporary nature of this current administration in relationship to the issue of climate change and climate policy. You just got to call this stuff out. Look, the polluted heart of the climate crisis is big oil, period, full stop. That's what this is all about. I mean, that's where the politics, that's where the timidity comes from. You talk about the tech stack. You can't get in one of these modern new vehicles and ever want to go back to the old gas guzzler. I mean, the technology, and we can talk in terms of just energy efficiency and how we bring down costs, and we've got to address those cost issues. But the biggest problem is the deceit and the denial that's happening because of these special interests. And so you just have to have the courage to call it out. And I agree with you. It's infuriating what I hear privately, but is not expressed publicly. And so we have to call people out. They'll be held to account. They will be judged and ultimately judge themselves. And I think this is a moral moment, across the board, simultaneous crisis, not just climate, but democracy. All this stacking of stress. And we all have a relationship to it. Society becomes how we behave. We are our behaviors. And so all of us have a role to play. All of us have agency. We can shape this conversation, but we have to stand up with more clarity, conviction, and we have to be more consistent.
People don't speak up because they're afraid of retaliation.
Yeah. Well, Buck up. So am I. There's probably not a politician in the United States. I'm under assault attack by this guy every single day. Here's the President of the United States. He's 80 years old, and he's calling me a nickname that an 8-year-old called me, New Scum. The President of the United States. You saw the racist tropes he put out. This is the President of the United States of America. Call this guy out. Stop this timidity. Stop with the BS diplomacy. You're in the rearview mirror. The recklessness of our own actions. And we're all becoming Chamberlains in this space. We have a supine United States Congress, so we have to stand up. Corporate leaders have to stand up. People have to stand up.
The smile was the first thing you noticed, and in that moment, it was the worst thing Gavin Newsom could have possibly done. He sat there in the heart of the Oval Office, the air thick with the presence of 30 hovering reporters perched in the visitor's chair adjacent to the President of the United States, and he smiled. It was that specific, defensive brand of smiling, the kind worn by a man who has convinced himself that if he simply projects an aura of relaxation, the world around him will magically become relaxed too. But the warmth didn't reach his eyes. It was a mask, a calculated bit of political theater, and Donald Trump saw right through it. Trump looked at the cameras, then back at the governor, and let out a sharp, knowing huff. "Look at him! He's smiling," Trump remarked to the room at large, his voice carrying that familiar, jagged edge. He shouldn't be smiling. Wait until you hear the numbers. Only 30 minutes earlier, Newsom had stepped through the West Wing doors with the practiced ease of a man who belonged in high-stakes rooms. He was a retail politician of the highest order, shaking hands with 3 different staffers whose names he had already committed to memory. He was prepared, or at least he believed he was. He knew the terrain was treacherous. At 6:47 a.m., Trump had already set the stage on Truth Social with a post that had racked up 14 million views by the time the governor's motorcade pulled up to the White House gates. Governor Gavin Newsom of California has agreed to come to the Oval Office today for a discussion about the future of California. The post read, "Should be very interesting. Maybe he can explain where the money went." The decision to accept the invitation had been the subject of a grueling 48-hour debate within Newsom's inner circle. His advisors were split down the middle. Half of them saw a neon sign flashing "Trap" and urged him to stay far away from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The other half argued that declining would be a public admission of frailty, a governor too terrified to look a president in the eye. Newsom, a veteran of Fox News debates who prided himself on his ability to perform in hostile territory, eventually sided with the latter group. He would go. He would be the adult in the room. He would let Trump descend into his usual rants while he stood tall, looking every bit the presidential alternative. He arrived looking the part. His dark suit was tailored to such perfection that it likely cost more than a month's rent in Fresno. His hair was a structural marvel, not a single strand out of place. His handshake was a masterpiece of calibration, firm, exactly 2 seconds long, paired with a micro-smile that signaled confidence without crossing the line into aggression. When he finally stood before the cameras with Trump, the president did what he always does. He held the handshake a beat too long. He gave a slight, tugging pull, drawing Newsom into his orbit. He tilted his own body to command the angle of the desk, a power move so subtle and practiced it could only be executed by someone who had spent half a century navigating the geometry of televised rooms. As they sat, the power dynamics were written into the furniture. Trump was ensconced behind the massive Resolute desk, while Newsom was relegated to the visitor's chair, a lower, less imposing seat usually reserved for foreign dignitaries or cabinet secretaries. In the Oval Office, nothing is accidental. The physical height, the lighting, the proximity. It was all designed to remind the guest exactly where they were. 30 reporters squeezed into the remaining gaps of the room, their notebooks ready. There was no moderator to intervene, no formal list of rules, and no ticking clock. This was Trump's house, and today he was the director of the show. Trump placed his palms flat against the wood of the desk and addressed the gathered press. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "This is a very important meeting. Governor Newsom has come all the way from California to talk about the future of his great state. Beautiful state. Used to be, anyway." He cut a quick, sharp glance toward Newsom. "We're going to have a very honest conversation. Very honest. I have some numbers here. He's not going to like them, but the numbers are the numbers." He turned fully toward Newsom now, his grin widening into something predatory. "Gavin, how's California doing? Tell everybody." Newsom leaned forward, his voice smooth and measured. "Well, Mr. President, I appreciate the invitation, and I'm happy to share that California remains the 5th largest economy in the world." "He's doing it!" Trump shouted, turning back to the reporters with a theatrical flourish. "I told my people this morning. I said he's going to say 5th largest economy in the first 30 seconds. I bet a Diet Coke on it. Somebody owes me a Diet Coke." He looked back at Newsom, his expression dropping into a look of faux pity. "Gavin, you can't keep saying that. You've said it 1,000 times. Nobody's impressed anymore. You know what else is big? Russia's economy is big. Doesn't mean you'd want to live there." A ripple of laughter moved through the press pool. Newsom's smile remained plastered on his face, but the skin around his eyes began to crinkle with tension. Trump didn't give him a second to recover. He reached for a thin red folder resting on the desk, adorned with a gold presidential seal that looked like it had been added specifically for the benefit of the television cameras. "Let me tell the room a story," Trump said, his voice dropping into a narrative hush. "November 2020. Gavin here. Beautiful Gavin. See great hair. Tells 40 million people in California to stay home. Don't go out. Don't see your family. Don't go to Thanksgiving. If your mother is dying in the hospital, you can't visit. If your father's funeral is this weekend, you can't go. Restaurants closed. Barbershops closed. Churches, schools, all closed. Your kids are sitting at home staring at a laptop, trying to learn math from a screen. Millions of people following the rules." He flicked the folder open and pulled out a single photograph, holding it up like a piece of evidence in a capital murder trial. The image showed Newsom at the French Laundry. No mask. 12 people packed together indoors. "Where is Gavin?" Trump asked. "He's at the French Laundry." "You know the French Laundry? $350 a plate. Not per person, per plate. And that's before the wine. And Gavin knows about wine. He's got a winery. Getty bought it for him, but we'll get to that later." He shoved the photo closer to the nearest lens. "Look at this. No mask. 12 people indoors, even though his office lied and said it was outdoors. There are pictures. The doors are closed. He's sitting shoulder to shoulder with lobbyists from the California Medical Association. The very people who are supposed to be telling him how to handle the virus are breaking the rules at his dinner party." Trump set the photo face up on the desk, a permanent reminder for the rest of the meeting. And his kids? This is the part that really gets me. His kids were in private school. In person. Teachers in the room, other kids in the room. The whole deal. While your kids, the kids of California, were on Zoom falling behind and getting depressed. Our pediatricians saying they'd never seen anxiety like this in children. And Gavin's kids? They're fine. They're in private school. $12,000 a year. Very nice. Newsom tried to interject, his tone still trying to maintain a level of statesmanlike decorum. "Mr. President, I've acknowledged publicly that the French Laundry dinner was a mistake, and I—" "A mistake?" Trump interrupted, throwing his hands into the air. "He calls it a mistake. You know what Rosa Martinez calls it? The end. Rosa had a restaurant in Fresno. Mexican food. Great food. She had it for 22 years. She followed your rules, Gavin. She closed. She lost everything. 22 years of work, gone, because she followed the rules that you broke. She calls it the end. You call it a mistake. Rosa couldn't afford a $350 plate, so she couldn't even afford to keep the lights on. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Trump leaned in closer, his voice sharpening. And then, this is unbelievable, but it happened. Then you went to a closed hair salon for a blowout. A blowout during a pandemic. Salons are closed by your own order, and you walk in and get your hair done. And when you get caught on camera, because there's always a camera, Gavin, you should know that by now, you say you were set up. Set up! And then you say the salon owner owes you an apology. Trump turned back to the press, shaking his head. The salon owner, nice lady, Erica, she got death threats. She had to close her shop, leave San Francisco, lost her business, lost her home. And Gavin? Gavin got a blowout and a fresh start. That's California for you, Gavin. How's California doing? Tell everybody. Newsom opened his mouth to reply, but Trump was already a mile down the road. Let me tell you about Gavin's background, because it's a great story. A fairy tale, almost. His daddy, William Newsom, was a lawyer for Getty Oil. Best friends with Gordon Getty, a billionaire, one of the richest families in the history of the world. Getty looked at little Gavin and said, "I'm going to invest in that boy." He put money into 10 out of 11 of Gavin's businesses. 10 out of 11. He told the San Francisco Chronicle he treated Gavin like a son. So this guy didn't build anything. He didn't start anything. A billionaire wrote checks, and Gavin cashed them, and now he calls himself a man of the people. Trump pointed a thumb at his own chest. I took a loan from my father. Everybody knows. I've talked about it 1,000,000 times. And I built a real estate empire. Buildings with my name on them. You can see them from the highway. Hotels, golf courses, tens of thousands of employees. I built things. Gavin? He took a billionaire's checkbook and opened a winery in Napa Valley. Very nice. Great wine, probably. But he didn't build it. Getty built it. Gavin just stood in front of it and smiled. That's actually his main skill, standing in front of things and smiling. The president's eyes narrowed as he shifted to the political origins. And then, how did he get into politics? Willie Brown. You know Willie Brown, right? The most powerful man in San Francisco. The kingmaker. The godfather of California politics. Willie appointed Gavin to his first job in government, the Parking and Traffic Commission. Nobody voted. No election. Willie said, "Sit here, kid." And Gavin sat. Then Willie appointed him to the Board of Supervisors. Then he ran for mayor. And then, this is the part that really makes the story, he had an affair with his campaign manager's wife. His campaign manager's wife. The guy is out running the campaign, knocking on doors, shaking hands, and Gavin is at home with the guy's wife. In any other city in America, any other city, that's the end. Career over, go home. But in San Francisco, they don't even care. They promoted him. He went from mayor to lieutenant governor to governor. Trump leaned back, staring at the ceiling as if seeking an explanation from the heavens. Gavin, the hair gel? I have to ask, was that before or after the affair? Because it's great hair. The best hair in politics. Maybe second best. He touched his own hair lightly. Then his face hardened again. But here's the thing about hair, Gavin. It doesn't run a state. Numbers run a state. And your numbers are a disaster. Mr. President, Newsom said, his voice finally showing a hint of strain, personal attacks aren't productive. I came here to discuss policy. Policy? Great! I love policy, Trump shot back. Let's talk policy. He pulled another sheet of paper from the red folder. I have numbers here. Real numbers. Census numbers. Not fake news numbers, not my numbers. Your numbers. The numbers that your state reports to the federal government. He held the page up. 4 million people have left California since the year 2000. 4 million. You know how many that is? That's bigger than the population of 22 states. That's like the entire city of Los Angeles getting up one morning, packing their stuff into a truck, and driving to Texas. And you know what? A lot of them did drive to Texas. Where did they go? I'll tell you. Texas, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, Tennessee, the Carolinas, red states, every single one. They went to states that do the opposite of what Gavin does. Lower taxes, lower cost of living, less regulation, more freedom, cheaper housing. You know, the stuff people actually want. He looked back at the sheet. 817,000 people left in 2022 alone. And these aren't just anybody. These are college-educated adults. Doctors, engineers, teachers, software developers, entrepreneurs. The people who build economies. The people who create jobs. The smart people are leaving, Gavin. And they're going to states that your party says are backward. What does that tell you? And the businesses! Trump's voice rose, filling the corners of the room. A Tesla, gone. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, said I can't do business in California anymore, and moved his entire headquarters to Texas. Oracle, gone to Texas. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, gone to Texas. Charles Schwab, gone to Texas. Palantir, gone to Denver. These aren't food trucks, Gavin. These aren't lemonade stands. These are the companies that built Silicon Valley. They created the California economy, the 5th largest economy in the world that you love to talk about. These companies built it, and they left because of you. Trump slapped the paper back onto the desk. Let me tell you about the cost of living, because these numbers are incredible in a bad way. Cost of living in California is $26,000 more per year for a middle-class family than the national average. What that means, if you make $100,000 in California, you have the same buying power as someone making $73,000 in a normal state. You lose 27% of your income just by living there. Gas prices, consistently the highest or second highest in the country. And what did Gavin do? He created a gas price gouging penalty. Sounds good, right? Except his own economists warned him it would raise prices. And it did. Prices went up because that's what happens when you add costs to a business. The business passes them to the customer. This is not complicated. This is day one business. This is lemonade stand economics. Housing? The median home in California costs $874,000. Almost $900,000. In Ohio, at where Vance is from, great guy, in Ohio, you can buy a beautiful house for $200,000. In Texas, $300,000. In California, $900,000. And Gavin wonders why people are leaving. They're not leaving because the weather is bad. California has great weather. They're leaving because they can't afford the weather. Electricity? 32 cents per kilowatt hour. Double the national average. And it's going up, 11% increase just last year. You're paying double for electricity in a state that is always sunny. How do you pay double for electricity when you have more sun than anybody? That takes special talent, a very expensive kind of talent. He turned to the reporters, his eyes wide. 4 million people. Think about that number. 4 million individual decisions. 4 million times a person sat at their kitchen table and looked at their rent, looked at their paycheck, looked at the gas bill and the grocery bill and the electricity bill and the price of a house they could never afford, and said, "I'm done." Nobody forced them. Nobody deported them. They chose to leave. They voted with their feet. Actually, they voted with U-Hauls. And every single U-Haul drove to a red state. He looked at Newsom. "So, how's California doing? The people who are left, I mean?" Newsom tried to interject, pivoting to talking points about California's gross domestic product and its innovation economy. His voice was professional, controlled, the voice of a man who had been trained by media consultants to remain calm under fire. Trump let him speak for about 15 seconds, just long enough for a veneer of politeness, but short enough to ensure no complete thought could actually form. "You're doing the thing again," Trump interrupted. "The smooth-talking thing. Very good. Very polished. Like a car salesman, actually. A good car salesman, I'll give you that. But here's the problem with car salesmen, Gavin. Eventually, the customer has to drive the car, and 4 million customers drove it right out of your state." Trump shifted his weight. His voice dropped half a register, the showmanship dimming for a moment. What was left was something that felt like genuine irritation, and in Trump, that was often more dangerous than the performance, because it meant the jokes were over. Let's talk about the homeless, because this one really bothers me. Gavin, when you were mayor of San Francisco, you said you would end homelessness. You said that in 2004, 21 years ago. You made a promise. Promises matter. At least, they do where I come from. He pulled a new figure from the file. $24 billion. That's how much California has spent on homelessness programs under Gavin. $24 billion with a B. Do you know what you can build for $24 billion? I built Trump Tower for $250 million. For $24 billion, I could build 96 Trump Towers. I could house every homeless person in California in a luxury apartment with a doorman and room service and still have money left over. But Gavin has a different approach. His approach is called housing first. Sounds good, right? Give them a house first. Solve the problem. Except 75% of the chronically homeless have drug addiction or severe mental illness. I and Gavin's rules say you can't require sobriety or mental health treatment as a condition of housing. You give them the house and say, "Do whatever you want. We won't ask questions." That's not housing. That's a really expensive room with no rules. "What did Gavin get for $24 billion?" Trump asked, leaning forward. More homeless people. 31% more. Not less. More. The entire rest of the country, homelessness went down 10%. Every other state figured it out. California went up by almost a third. He spent $24 billion and made the problem worse. That's actually impressive, in a horrible way. You have to try to fail that badly. He leaned in even further. An NBC investigation. Very professional. They walked the streets themselves. They surveyed 153 blocks of downtown San Francisco. Trash on all of them. Every single block. Needles on 41 blocks. Human feces on 96. 96 blocks. A preschool teacher said, and this is a quote, "We see poop, we see pee, we see needles, and we see trash." That's the walking route for children going to school in Nancy Pelosi's district and Gavin's state. Trump leaned back, a smug look crossing his face. But here's my favorite part. My absolute favorite. In 2023, President Xi Jinping, China. Very tough guy. We get along, actually. President Xi comes to San Francisco for a big summit. And you know what happened? Trump paused. He was a master of the silence, letting the tension build until it was palpable. The streets got clean overnight. The tent cities, gone. The needles, gone. And the human waste on 96 blocks, gone. The drug addicts relocated, moved, cleared. Whatever they did with them, they were gone. San Francisco looked beautiful, like a postcard, like the San Francisco you see in old movies, sparkling for the president of China. And then he left. He let the silence stretch for 3 seconds, then 4. The room held its breath. And it all came back, Trump said softly. Every tent, every needle, every pile of you-know-what on those 96 blocks. All of it. In a week, it was like a magic trick. Except the trick was on the people who live there and pay taxes there and send their children to school there. Gavin proved something that night. He proved he can fix homelessness in San Francisco whenever he wants to. He has the resources. He has the manpower. He has the ability. He just doesn't want to do it for Americans. He did it for a communist dictator. He looked directly at Newsom, his voice cold. You cleaned the streets for Xi Jinping and left them dirty for the people who elected you. Gavin, even I wouldn't do that. And I've been accused of a lot of things. Newsom's smile was finally gone. It wasn't replaced by anger or a fiery rebuttal. It was replaced by nothing. A blank, hollow expression. It was the look of a man who was frantically calculating whether he should fight back or simply endure the storm, and he hadn't finished the math yet. Trump wasn't finished. He was never finished until he decided the scene was over. 33 billion, he said, stretching the word billion until it seemed to fill every corner of the Oval Office. The 33 billion in unemployment fraud under Gavin. His Employment Development Department, the EDD, sounds like a disease, and frankly, it is a disease. His EDD sent out $33 billion in fraudulent payments during the pandemic. He began counting on his fingers. Prisoners got checks. Inmates. People behind bars. The state knows where they are. They're in prison, and the Ed still sent them unemployment checks. Dead people got checks. People who had been dead for years. People in other states, New York, Florida, God knows where, who never lived in California, never worked there, never even set foot there. They filed claims and got paid. International crime rings filed thousands of claims using stolen identities, and nobody caught it for months. 33 billion went out the door, and Gavin's people didn't even notice. He leaned in for the kill, adding a detail that felt like a surgical strike. And just to really complete the picture, a state audit found that the EDD paid monthly service fees for over 6,000 cell phones that nobody was using. 6,000 phones sitting in drawers for years. Some of them hadn't been turned on in 4 years, and the state was paying the bill every month. That's not government. That's comedy. He pulled out another sheet. 7 state agencies. 7 are now classified as high risk by the state auditor. That means waste, fraud, abuse, or severe mismanagement. 7 agencies. $76 billion in high-risk operations under Gavin. And then, just to make it perfect, his chief of staff, Dana Williamson, gets indicted. 23 counts. Bank fraud. Wire fraud. She claimed $1.7 million in fake business expenses on her taxes. A $15,000 Chanel bag. A private jet. A $170,000 birthday trip to Mexico. And she did all this from 2022 to 2024 while working for Gavin in his office next to his desk. 5 co-conspirators indicted, 27,000 pages of evidence, 750 gigabytes. That's a lot of fraud, Gavin. Trump stared Newsom down. You didn't know. Your chief of staff is buying $15,000 Chanel bags and chartering private jets with taxpayer money? And you didn't know? Gavin, she sat outside your door. She ran your schedule. She managed your staff. How do you not notice? I notice when someone changes the flowers in the lobby. I notice everything. That's why I'm here, and you're in that chair. And the train. So Trump actually laughed. A genuine, unforced laugh. Oh, the train. This is my favorite. The train to nowhere. High-speed rail, Los Angeles to San Francisco. Voters approved it in 2008 for $33 billion. You know what it costs now? $128 billion. 4 times the price. And how many people have ridden it? 0. Not one. Not a single human being has sat on that train. Over a decade of construction, $128 billion. 0 passengers. He held up a single finger. I built buildings in 18 months. I built golf courses in less than a year. This guy can't build a train in 15 years, and he wants to run the country? The country is harder than a train, Gavin. Much harder. Oh, and the houses. He promised 3.5 million new homes by 2025. You know how many got built? About 640,000. He missed by 82%. And when they asked him about it, he said, and this is real, he said it was a stretch goal. A stretch goal. In business, if you miss your target by 82%, you get fired. In California, you get to run for president. Trump was picking up speed now. The humor was gone, replaced by a rapid-fire delivery of data. It was the side of Trump that his detractors often missed. The reality that beneath the theater was a man who could digest a balance sheet and use it as a weapon. Schools, he barked. 2/3 of California kids can't do math at grade level. 2 out of 3. More than half can't read or write at grade level. These are your state's own test scores, Gavin, from your own Department of Education. And your kids? Private school. To in-person during the pandemic? $12,000 a year tuition. Great school. The best for your kids. Everybody else's kids got a laptop and a Zoom account, and 2 years of falling behind. He leaned forward, his voice low and intense. You know what 2 years of lost education does to a child? I'll tell you. It follows them forever. The kids who missed school during your lockdown while your kids were in class, those kids will earn less over their lifetimes. They'll have fewer opportunities. They'll struggle with things that the kids in your private school won't struggle with. And you did that. Not the virus. You. Because you kept schools closed longer than almost any other state. Other states opened. You stayed closed. And your kids were in private school the whole time. Crime, Trump continued. Up across the board after his Proposition 47 and Proposition 57. You can steal $949 from a store, and it's a misdemeanor. Under 1,000? Go ahead, help yourself. People walk into stores with garbage bags, on camera. Very professional, very organized. Take everything off the shelves, walk out, and nothing happens. Nothing. Stores are closing because of it. Walgreens closed locations. Target reduced hours. Small businesses? Forget about it. They can't survive when the law says you can steal from them and nobody goes to jail. And the voters? The voters passed Proposition 36 last November to reverse what Gavin did. Overwhelmingly, the people of California said, "This isn't working. We want our laws back," and Gavin opposed it. His own voters told him he was wrong, and he told them they were wrong. that takes a special kind of, I'll be polite, that takes a special kind of confidence. Wildfires, he shouted. His office said they treated hundreds of thousands of acres for fire prevention. NPR investigated. NPR, not Fox, not me, not the Republican Party. NPR, the most liberal news organization in America. The kind of people who put Gavin's picture on their